go to U of L, isn't that correct?
Yes,
That's
yes.
what
So
I
we
thought.
get done earlier, which is both a blessing and a curse when it's time to actually get done earlier. But I'm
That's
happy
right.
to earlier.
That's right. You got to get out of there before Derby. So
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
yeah, my son went to U of L, so he always got out earlier because of the
Oh,
Derby
okay.
crowd.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. My scholarship program is traveling to Europe right after Derby ends. So it's nice for us because we can get out before the busy season kind of starts. So
People are rolling in, and I'm so grateful. Hey, Dr. Thompson, good to see you.
Everybody.
And we're going to go on. Yeah, I was going to say, Wayne, are we ready to go? Wonderful. So good afternoon, everybody. So glad to see you on this beautiful spring day. And we will get started right away. I'm very excited about our agenda, and I'm anxious to get going. So Dr. Thompson, I'm going to start with you, and then you will pass it on to the commissioner for welcoming this great group.
Thank you, Amanda. Happy spring, everybody. I hope it's not affecting you the way it is me, in the sense of allergies. But I love the warm weather. I actually plan on joining Representative Tipton on his farm and helping him a little bit here pretty soon. Okay, Representative Tipton may have been a little bit of a lie, but it's good to see everybody. That is not a lie. I'm happy to be here with you. One of the things that I have to start with is that obviously, the flooding that has taken place throughout Kentucky, it seems we keep getting hit over and over again. We get a chance to be here and do this, and that's good for the state, good for the young people and older people in Kentucky. But when we see things like this happening throughout Kentucky, and I'm from Eastern Kentucky, and it was really affected, and in Frankfort and other places, and we lost the life of a young child in Frankfort. I know this affects us all. I just wanted to start just maybe a moment of silence, if we wouldn't mind, just thinking about those. Those of you who pray, please feel free to do so. But I would be remiss if I didn't start the conversation with that in mind. Thank you all. Thank you for giving me that privilege to start it in this manner. Boy, the session is over. There were a lot of bills that affected both higher ed and K-12. We know about that. We can talk about it later on today, and I'll let you all do that if you will. But there are some things that will be changing or has changed already and on the landscape. The item that hasn't changed is truly still our dedication to serving all of the students here in Kentucky, whether they're adult learners or whether they are the early childhood or the traditional age student going into college. And I'm proud that the Continuum has continued to do that. Lots of good stuff to talk about. What came out of Continuum, I won't take a lot of time, but I have to highlight Futurity, which is really just absolutely wonderful. If you haven't seen it, you're really missing it. So I want to bring a couple of items to your attention about it, some numbers that you would be pleased, since a lot of this conversation came from us. Uh, if you look at it, by the way, Jessica and Amanda, appreciate your work on this. Since February, we've had more than 15,500 individual visits to the site and over 52,000 views. And this is compared to 17,000 that visited the CPE website in that time span and 9,350 the KY stats site. We have also met over, I say we, and I'm taking that liberally. It's actually been the great staff we have. Met over 20 different organizations representing K-12, adult learners, post-secondary, and many people, Kim Minke, in the workforce. Through the partnership with KDE, we had a great support system that we could go into our K-12 schools and being able to share this. And once again, this is really a landscape change. I'm talking about it around the country, and people are just amazed we were able to get something like this put together in such a comprehensive way. We also want to reach out to those that are no longer enrolled in high school. John Gregory, I'm sure you'll be happy with that, and have engaged post-secondary to complete the necessary training that they need to have to get them back engaged. We've received over a significant amount of dollars with the support from other folks, but Nash, I want to particularly thank them for giving us a $10,000 grant to do some digital outreach. And this has really given us great results. So thank you, Nash, for your support. Through the search engine strategies and YouTube paid promotions, you will see we are driving traffic to the site from men and women and all of the adult age groups. We're hopeful that additional support and funding, Representative Tipton, I'm really talking now to hopefully our partners in the legislature to look at this and really see how this is really truly a P20 effort that is reaching all the way deep into the workforce. Now, it's important for me to say that I wanted to share this because the P20 continuum that we have in place is designed to do exactly this kind of stuff, right? Today, we'll be talking a lot about the 5 high demand sectors, but also want to truly point out that that this seamless transition that we're trying to make is something that I would argue that no other state is doing, and many other states are arguing no other states are doing it. So they're looking out to us all the time to do that. A couple of pieces of good news I want to share. You may have seen that our college going rate ticked up 2 percentage points this time. That's stopped. I hope it stopped the slide of us going down, and now we're starting to go back up again. You'll see in enrollment, Kentucky is also leading the nation once again in enrollment increase. You'll see our completion rates is number 2 in the country. We've really reached the national average on many things, and we're still closing gaps. All these things are important for us to know, just to understand that what you're doing matters, and knowing that we're not just talking about it, there's real outcomes. Now, can we attribute it all to this kind of conversation? Absolutely not. But you can't discount that Kentucky is going significantly in the direction that we want Kentucky to go when we are thinking about a P20 effort. And you can contribute that to this kind of conversation. So once again, I appreciate it. There's a lot more I want to say, but Amanda doesn't give me enough time to say it. And with that in mind, I'll turn it over to my partner at KDE, Commissioner Fletcher.
Thank you so much, Dr. Thompson. I appreciate it. And also, too, thank you so much for starting us out in such an appropriate way with having that moment of silence for not only the family in Franklin County, but for so many others that have been impacted by the flooding. As a matter of fact, for some of you who may not know, we still have McLean County has not set a time for coming back in person with students. As a matter of fact, I talked to Superintendent Burrow yesterday, and they've been very thankful for the additional emergency NTI days, and among other things too. So again, we still have several districts are still being impacted as we move forward. So, and again, thank you for all the efforts that people have had. The silver lining in this is it's such a blessing to see so many people get out and help their neighbor, and see Kentuckians that are there lifting each other up, doing their best to help our schools. And then also too, our schools are often being used as safe places, as shelters in these times. So again, thank you to all of our people that step out and help their neighbor. And also thank you to our school communities for what they do. Amanda, Dr. Ellis, I do have some slides there, and I'll try to go through these kind of quickly. I do have several there to get us right on track. But from our end, next slide, please. Some exciting things that was going on. Recently, we went through our All In for Ag Week. This was a partnership with Commissioner Shell, Lieutenant Governor, to really emphasize all the major careers that are part of the ag system. Also, too, here at KDE, we developed some lesson plans in the elementary setting for students for teachers to utilize as it goes around pollination, and also to learn about erosion. But what you see here are pictures from Creekside Elementary, and we had a great opportunity there. We had students talk to us about not only about the digestive system, but they were comparing and contrasting the digestive system of animals like cows with humans. And it was really great to see those students at work. So the All In for Ag Week is just the start. We will have one also coming up in the fall. Next slide, please. Also, too, a great opportunity to let everyone know about our Persistence to Graduation Summit. That will be happening here in Lexington, at downtown Lexington, from June 14th to the 13th. And our theme, of course, is elevating student voice. As you can tell, we have several engaging interactive sessions that revolve around student transition and re-engagement strategies, alternative education programming and well-rounded educational opportunities, safe and supportive learning environments, and effective use of education technology. So again, very thankful for the Persistence to Graduation Summit. If you haven't been a part, please register and learn more as we move forward. Next slide, please. If you've been watching the news in the last couple of days, I think last night, I think one of our local stations had our campaign, our strategic marketing plan, if you will, on spotlighting the teaching profession. And this is part of our Go Teach Kentucky, which we were talking about Go Inspire, Go Lead, and Go Teach. If you follow me on social media, I also posted the news article or the news story last night. But also, too, if you'll go on to the next slide, we have several billboards throughout the Commonwealth that really coalesce around the ideas of inspiring, leading, and teaching. And you can see so many teachers that are mentioned here that are part of that billboard campaign, and they're a part of the Go Teach Kentucky ambassadors, as a matter of fact. So we tried to link up maybe an area where the billboard with the teacher that was there, and again, really moving forward with our Go Inspire, Go Teach, Go Lead, and Go Teach. And I love the topics on these. Go ignite passion, go foster confidence, go fuel imagination. So again, look at this in a community near you, please. Next slide, please. I'm not going to go through the commercial, but this is a commercial that you'll see on some of our on the TV, on cable, and otherwise. I think Spectrum is running this for us, but it is a great 30-second clip. So if you have the opportunity, you see the YouTube link there. I won't go through this and play that, but I think it's a great opportunity for you to see so many of our students and our teachers to really just advertise our teaching profession and what it means. Next slide, please. And of course, on our website has been totally redesigned. So now I think there's even part of the website, if you want to teach, where you see the Find Your Path, you can click on that, answer a few questions, and it tells you what option may be the best for you of our different pathways for becoming a teacher. So our Go Teach Kentucky website is revamped, remodeled, and I think within a week we had somewhere around, I want to say, over 7,000 hits, and I think 6,000 of those was our Associate Commissioner Meredith Brewer, but she has been so excited about this and this work. So if you have the opportunity, go to our Go Teach Kentucky website. Next slide, please. We also, our Go Teach Kentucky ambassadors, as I mentioned before, they go out and talk to our MSU Teach student, our different teaching groups throughout the state. Here you see Miss Maddie Morgan, who is one of our 21 teachers selected for Go Teach Ambassador Program. As a matter of fact, when I was a superintendent, we had one from Fallsburg that was a part of the Go Teach program. And then if you can see here too, that she did a visit to Morehead State on February 13th and talked to her students about the importance of effective teaching strategies and the impact educators can have on student lives. So again, marketing, getting out the good news about the teaching profession and how it truly changes lives. Next slide, please. This has been one of my favorite events. We had the governor, the lieutenant governor spoke at this, and also the commissioner spoke at our Kentucky Educators Rising Conference that we had. On the next slide, please. I think we have some numbers. No, I'll tell you some numbers. I think we had over 826 students, if the numbers are correct, that were part of the Kentucky Educators Rising Conference. Very thankful for that. We had students that were giving presentations throughout the day, and they competed in 27 different activities that went from lesson planning to public speaking to developing children's literature. So this was an exciting day. It was great to see the enthusiasm and just the sheer joy of our students as they're looking forward to getting into the teaching profession. So again, you'll see from the Kentucky Department of Education our push to really highlight the importance of teachers in the profession and how can we move forward. Also, I want to mention the Skills USA students. They'll be showing off their abilities at a statewide conference. And Skills USA is the #1 workforce development organization for students. Then we have, I think, more than 3,500 students that are part of Skills USA. And if you're part where you feel called to lead a classroom or building a career through trade, both paths reflect a commitment to shaping the future. And we have more than 1,000 students that are part of the Skills USA State Leadership Conference. Next slide, please. Another thing to highlight is our Go Pro Day. As a matter of fact, we had several students that were recognized as part of this Go Pro event. It took place in the Capitol in our talent takeoff and during our Community College Month. We had several employers like Toyota, LG&E, KU, Kentucky Utilities that signed on to their companies and spoke on at the event. So we had a Going Pro Day, very similar to what you see with students signing to be maybe going to college or maybe signing contracts to go pro. Well, they're also going pro as it relates to careers. So it was a very exciting day. Next slide, please. And the last thing is something that many of you may not be aware of. We do have a fire science career and technical education pathway that it's expanding more and more in Kentucky. Henderson County and Woodford County will introduce their own programs next fall. And then we also have Fire Creek has had one since 2019 with around 40 students. And they started with 40, and now they have 200 students that participate in their fire science career pathway. Also, as superintendent, this was a program that we implemented in Lawrence County. We started with a small group, and that keeps expanding as we go through, just to make sure that our students have these opportunities, not only to go into maybe firefighting, but also to maybe EMT. So having this fire science career pathway that expands and allows it to go into multiple areas. So several ideas there. Tried to stay within the time allotted, but again, a lot of great things going on, and it's kind of hard to narrow it down into one or two things. But again, a lot of enthusiasm. Also look for our next accountability model, next framework to be out, 4.0 pretty soon. Very excited about that as we drive local accountability into our schools and just highlight what's already going on. So with that being said, I think I'm going to be turning it back over to Dr. Ellis.
Yes, thank you. And if you all notice, we have quite the theme around workforce and outreach today. There's a reason for that. But before we get into the agenda, we do have a couple of new members. We'll be having some new members come on. And so one that we have been void of are our students, and it's hard for their schedules, and I would definitely don't want them to miss class to be a part of this, but their voice is invaluable. And so Macy Waddle is actually on our CPE board as our student representative. She attends the University of Louisville. And when I say she's engaged, she is engaged. She has been to our committee meetings this week. She is engaged with us today and will be our representative. And she is also going to be in Northern Kentucky tomorrow at our board meeting. And so when definitely want you to have an opportunity to get to know her. And Macy, I'll be anxious just to hear your feedback today too. And so we're just so grateful for your time, your lived experiences, and your willingness to serve. So thank you. We also have Kevin Stull, who is joining us as the Garrett County Superintendent. We usually have KASA, but they have had a hard time aligning schedules, and so we definitely want the voice. We obviously have Dr. Jim Flynn, who is always here, but we also wanted the field staff as well, who are in the throes of this. So Dr. Kevin Stull, we are so glad to have you join us and encourage you to engage and share your experiences as well. This group is very talkative, believe it or not, if the rest of us won't jabbermouth the whole time, and have a lot to input. So we welcome both of you, and you all will see more people coming on in August as well. So thank you so much for serving. So our agenda today, it's a little bit different. We're changing things up. So normally we take an education into workforce perspective, and this P20 continuum that we have done working on year 5, really reflecting on the past 4 years, we started to dig into your comments, to the lived experiences, and realize that we need to know more and include more perspectives from the workforce. And taking a workforce perspective also causes us to rethink and discuss the impact on education, post-secondary education, K-12, early childhood, our messaging and communication, our networking, our policies. And so it was not any more of a better time to be able to talk about this with the new revised Kentucky's top 5 in-demand workforce sectors. This does not mean it's the only 5 in our state. It's the top 5, and Alisher is going to give some feedback on that as well as Sam from KY Stats. And we're going to have a panel today to talk about the workforce implications around those top 5, but just in general, what do we mean? How do we work together? And what is the implication for education? And then based on that, we're going to, on your feedback and discussion, we're going to start digging into priorities really for 2025, the rest of 25, and into 26. And so at this time, to get us started, we're actually going to turn it over to Alisher, and he is going to walk us through those top 5 high demand job sectors and what does it really mean? What is it? And why does it matter? And then we will roll right into our panel. So Alisher, thank you for being here and for being willing to serve and to also share. And so I'm going to turn the mic over to you. And when you're done, we'll be ready to roll into our panel, and I'll introduce our panelists.
Awesome. Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. And thank you for the The good opening, Dr. Thompson and Commissioner Fletcher. Really enjoyed hearing that. And before I start, I will say kudos to you all for the student voice. I once had an opportunity to serve on a grant review process, and this was going to impact high schools, and we had two high schoolers on our committee, and boy, did they bring some valuable insight into the work. And so kudos to you all to bring that voice in. So I'm happy to talk to you all today about the Kentucky's top 5 sectors. My name is Alashir Barakanov. I'm the Executive Director of the Kentucky Workforce Innovation Board. KWIB is the acronym. I'm also glad that you will hear later from our past chairman, Kim Menke, and I'm joined by many colleagues here from the Education and Labor Cabinet and the workforce system. The KWIB, if we can go to the next slide, is a 40-member volunteer entity appointed by the governor. We are a 51% business entity, so we're definitely a business-led group, and all individuals are here to try to drive workforce to the next step, right? The point of the workforce board is to come up with strategies that we can all get behind so we can get more individuals into good jobs and more qualified talent into businesses that are hiring. We want to be able to align education along the way, and we want to prepare individuals for the future. The future is coming fast. We all have seen the way technology is advancing, and so we want to make sure that the skills are available and that businesses are aware of all the talent in the Commonwealth. We have 4 strategies that we really hone in on. Number 1 is employer engagement. You can't have a supply and demand of workforce without businesses at the table and businesses signaling their needs. So we have to have employers engaged. The second is education attainment. To be able to grow the Commonwealth, education is a critical component. Education means different to different individuals. It can mean higher ed. It can mean post-secondary credential. It can mean so many things, but individuals need to learn throughout their lifetime. The third is workforce participation. How do we ensure that all Kentuckians have access to opportunities? I've heard Dr. Thompson say if an opportunity is not presented, it's not an opportunity, right? If a person's not aware of an opportunity, what is it? And so making sure that all Kentuckians are brought to the forefront and all of our talent pools have that opportunity is critical. And the final one is organizational and resource alignment. If all of the workforce development efforts are not unified in collaboration and working in unison, it's really hard to manage to see what's going on. And so organizations and entities like this board here help with that, bringing people together, getting everyone on the same page and moving forward. So that is our background. Those are the 4 strategies we follow. And part of that is the charge to be able to review and select the top 5 sectors. And like Dr. Ellis said, there are a lot of sectors in Kentucky, a lot of different diversity from West Kentucky to East Kentucky to Central Kentucky, Northern and Southern. But these sectors that we reviewed allow us to better hone in on the strategy, better focus in on the way we're going to develop talent and serve businesses. And so if you can go to the next slide, I'll briefly go over the process we took to be able to select this. Sam Keithley will speak later on data. KY Stats is a gemstone across the nation, and we're so happy that we get to share a floor with them in workforce development and come pick their brains whenever that opportunity comes. So definitely the backbone to all data has been KY Stats. So we took a 2-phase approach to identifying the top sectors. We did a quantitative and a qualitative approach. First, we started with the quantitative. We wanted to make sure the data components was there and that we were in agreement to the way we're looking at data. So we brought together a work group. KWIB, as noted earlier, is business driven. So we brought our businesses together. We brought some industry associations representing both industry at large and also select trades industry groups. Then we government, education, and nonprofit. Those volunteer work group members served in reviewing the various methodologies that we can get behind. We started off by looking at occupations. We wanted to see what occupations are in demand as of today. What occupations are growing? over the next 10 years, and what occupations are paying a family sustaining wage, what occupations one can go into and be able to have one job. And so at first, these numbers were a third, 33%, 33%, 33%. I think one of the benefits of having business at the table is that they're able to give us true market insight of the moment, a true pulse on the economy. And so the businesses at the table said, we really need to stress the importance of demand. We need to hire now. We need to know what occupations are truly in demand as of today. So that specific category received a little more weight than the others. And so 50% weight on occupational demand and 25 on the other two. After that methodology was selected, the occupations were crossed over to the industries they represent. Some occupations, Sam will go into this deeper, are unique to certain industries. Other occupations you can find across all industries. Think of your HR managers, of your accountants. You could find that in almost any industry out there. And so after that was settled on, the work group really blessed it and said, yes, this is the methodology we want to move forward. We moved to the second phase of bringing the qualitative group. So the qualitative group consisted of statewide education and training providers. Now here I have listed the alphabet soup of government, but you all are aware of what these acronyms mean. So we have Education and Labor, Kentucky Department of Education, Council on Post-Secondary Education, KIA, KCTCS, we had the local workforce development boards. They are the pulse of their local business needs, and we wanted to make sure they were at the table. And then we brought also economic development to the table, because economic development obviously has the data, but they also have some foresight of what's coming that may not be reflected in the data. So this group reviewed the methodology, reviewed the analysis, and ultimately said, these are the 5 sectors that we want to move forward with. So what happened next is we brought all the 5 sectors to our board meeting on November 21st last year and presented that, and the membership of the KWIB, which I mentioned earlier, all voted on it and selected as those are the top 5 sectors. Another thing that the board voted on is to be able to review this process every 5 years. And obviously, if the need arises even sooner, because we know technology advances so fast that maybe in 2 years, there's a sector that we weren't even thinking of. But the idea is to be able to be on a continuous cycle, to be able to check the pulse of the economy, to be able to check the pulse of these stakeholders that are going to be affected by ultimately the economy, to be able to select. So if you may go to the next slide, this is the final slide to demonstrate what those top 5 sectors are. I think some of them will not surprise you, given Kentucky's economy, Kentucky's location, but others are new to the world of workforce. So the first one is healthcare, and these are not in any order to say one is greater than the other. These are listed in just the order that are listed. So we have healthcare, then we have manufacturing and logistics, construction. And then the 2 new sectors that we're seeing this time around that we did not see previously is education, and the last one is professional, scientific, and technical services. These 5 sectors have the occupations that fit that methodology that we talked about. They have jobs that are currently in demand. They have growth potential over the next 10 years, and they have wages that are associated with living standards in Kentucky. So these are the top 5 sectors, and the question is, what's next? What's next is really up to the workforce system, right? It's up to the education, it's up to all of us to see what can we do. From the board perspective, we're going to be considering these top 5 sectors as we think about growing work-based learning, the ability to get more apprenticeships in place, more internships in place. It's going to be how we serve businesses, how we demonstrate best practices, how we show case studies. So we have a lot to do over the next years to make sure we demonstrate the importance of these top 5 sectors, and also leave room to the ability for local economies across the state to be able to get people into jobs that are unique to them. We often hear from West Kentucky, agriculture is one of their top sectors. They also border the Mississippi River, and there's a lot of maritime jobs that are available. We don't want to limit anything. We want to just highlight statewide what we see based on that methodology, based on those stakeholder inputs. And with that, I'm happy to send the mic back to you, Dr. Ellis, and answer any questions. But I think you have a good panel, good KY stats presentation that's coming up that'll kind of highlight more importance on this.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions for Alisher? Super helpful. And you will get a copy of these slides, so you need to simmer on them a little more. It is completely fine. Any questions, you can unmute or put it in the chat.
Dr. Ellis, this is Representative Tipton. Thank you, Alisher, for that presentation. I believe previously weren't manufacturing and logistics separate categories in the top 5 demand. So, and with the 2 new ones, education and the services, refresh my memory, which area dropped out of the top 5 demands that was previously in that?
You are correct, Representative Tipton. So I'll say first, the 2 were combined because you almost can't have one without the other, right? With all the raw material coming in or subparts and then all the goods coming out. The one that did drop was business and IT. So that was also a culmination of various sectors, NAICS codes that were put together. So that one dropped because it's so wide and those occupations didn't meet the threshold. But the professional, scientific, and technical services, I think that's for all of us to wrap our minds around, what does that mean? And so a lot of times that this is what we're going to have to understand is and demonstrate what that sector means. But when we look at those jobs in there, they include some IT professionals. It also includes, your financial professionals, your CPAs, but also your auditors. It includes even the legal profession with legal assistants and market researchers. So that is a lot of times those companies in that sector are providing services to other companies, and it's just growing in size. And I think when we look at the impacts of AI and the growth in AI jobs, it's going to be this sector that's going to be growing, but also most impacted because those are sometimes considered those jobs that can be supplemented by AI, augmented versus replaced. So it's an interesting one to watch.
If I could add one brief follow-up, I believe I'm correct. So these new 5 sectors will now be the sectors that qualify for the Workforce Kentucky Scholarship. I believe I'm correct in that. Thank you.
If I could jump in there, Representative Tipton, yes, you're correct. However, the other requirements of the Work Ready program would still have to be met.
Questions and clarifications. I think it's on the minds of a lot of people, so that's helpful. Anything else at this point for Alisher?
No, but I wanted to jump on Joe Carroll. So give us a couple examples what those other things are. I'm especially thinking about the education new category, right? Yeah, as you all know.
That's correct. I think there's maybe an assumption that education is added to the top 5 and suddenly Work Ready Scholarship is available for those pursuing a teaching degree. And that's not the case. The Work Ready Scholarship is limited to industry recognized credentials up to an Associates of Science degree that actually places someone directly into the workforce, which generally speaking, most of your teachers require the 4 years bachelor's degree. So that's the difference there. And that would be the main disconnect isn't the right word that I'm looking for, but where the Work Ready program and the 5 sectors would not go completely together.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to clarify. Representative Tipton and myself over, I don't know how many years now, Representative Tipton, have had this conversation about the importance of education. So I'm so glad it made it into the top 5. Now, how do we rethink, or if we should rethink, that's the legislature, and hopefully some input Commissioner, from you and me and others into this conversation about, how can we design that? If that's an important piece that should be a part of this, then how do we look at that for the future, right? So that's once again, Amanda, not to put anything on your agenda here, but I mean, that's an important piece of the conversation, right? If it is in the top demand and we know the need, right? I can spit out data to you all day long on the need. And also the need of making sure that we're targeting in the areas that we need. Not the only example, an example, middle school, high school math and science, or some of the other items, or even when it comes to EPSB and CPE and others, how do we make sure that we are promoting those degrees that get us there, those specializations with master's degrees, right, with content as an example. So a lot of the things that we've talked about with the Ed Continuum over the years are truly items still on the plate to discuss, in my opinion, and ones that could be very important to the workforce, Secretary Link of Kentucky, right, and very important to really continuing to build the economy.
And if I can
Add
just
to
add
that,
a
if I may.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. We began some work with KHEAA and also with Senator Higdon that started with with education being added to the top 5 sectors, but we really moved into looking at the teacher apprenticeship programs and what's available there, and trying to build a pathway for students that can receive the teaching grants and maybe some more funding, so that if you look at teaching and dual credit programs and grow your own programs within districts, and then move into secondary and then have a tuition-free pathway for teachers, for prospective teachers that can move into the teaching career. Again, that would be a tuition free. But now we started off with the idea of how does this look for the dual credit scholarships and things of that nature. But we tried to look what was available and move into that. And Dr. Ellis, I think, can add some more to that if you'd like.
Yes, I mean, that's what I was going to say, is that in any of those conversations, it's just important to consider the aid programs that are already available, and some things that the legislature has passed just in the last couple of sessions, that once, we talked about Dr. Fletcher of getting students the head start in high school through extended dual credit availability. And then once they hit that 3rd year and they're already being accepted into teacher ed programs, there are a plethora of programs that really can pretty much completely fund students getting those teacher degrees out the work ready program.
Well, it is about alignment, right? I mean, great design as I work with the post-secondary campuses to make sure that those dual credit offerings are in place and that they are aligned. So I think you're right. I mean, there's when this conversation is happening, it is talking about good alignment. And to make good alignment happens, it's going to take all of us at the table discussing how we can use each part of whatever quote unquote authorities that we have to make sure that that happens. Opening on the very back end, possibly the opportunity after all that runs out, some work ready scholarship, I think is also a part of that alignment process, whether it's the last dollar in or whatever the case may be, because you're right, there are some already in place good scholarships, if you want to call it that I think we need to make sure that we do our part in helping students understand that's their path, right? If they want it.
Yeah, so this is excellent conversation. I think it's going to roll right into our panel. So we are really pleased today to have some of our members serve on the panel and some guests. And so I would like to introduce Sherilyn Bratcher, which you all know, is going to be serving as the school counselor liaison in the education and career planning hat is what she'll be wearing. Karen Mayo is joining us. She's the provost at BCTC, so post-secondary training, employer systems are being represented by Mr. Kim Minke, founder and past chair of KWIB of the Provision Process Solutions, always very engaged. Adult and military education, Dr. John Gregory is our executive director and one of our members, of course, in the Office of Adult Education at the Cabinet, Education and Labor Cabinet. We have K-12 Education Systems, Dr. Jim Flynn, as the Executive Director of KASS for School Superintendents, and Workforce. We have John Hughes, Public Affairs Director at the Kentucky Chamber of Commerce. And so these fine folks have agreed to serve on a panel to answer some of these questions in broadly, and then even more so how it aligns in their view. And so I'm going to start with a few questions, but as members, I really want you to fill up the chat. I want you to throw your questions in there, your ideas, your thoughts, because we're going to be able to process a little bit after this panel before Sam shares his information. So the first thing we're going to start with, John Hughes, I'm going to start with you. So after you heard Alisher, and I know this is not news to you, how did these sectors align with what the Chamber has been seeing and hearing across Kentucky? What kind of context could you add to what Alisher shared today and what you all dealt with the high demand sectors?
Thank you, Amanda. It's no secret that several industries across Kentucky are facing workforce shortages. We published a report in 2021 highlighting this. It kind of got magnified due to COVID, but really we were on a 20-year decline in workforce participation. And if you've not had a chance to look at that report, I highly recommend it because it goes into a little 20-year history gap. So business leaders, they want to control what they can control. They want to have an educated workforce. And we are aware that our future workforce resides in the public halls of our classrooms today. I think for the longest time, businesses were supposed to focus on business and education sectors focused on education sectors. And there was no collaborative effort between the two. And that's not the case anymore. We were doing something for 20 years the wrong way, and hopefully we can auto correct here. And kudos to the Continuum to kind of spearheading some of those conversations. The Kentucky Chambers also had been working from behind the scenes on this as well. We put together what we've titled SWAT, the State Workforce and Talent Traction Team. I believe Secretary Link's on the call. He's a participant of that, Dr. Thompson as well. And it's a great program. We pride ourselves on being conveners, get people in the right room to really address this because it impacts all of us. Like I said, businesses employ so many people across our state, but we have to have an educated workforce, and we pride ourselves on facilitating some of those conversations. But it's conversations like today that the Continuum is having with a broader scope of people that we want to have a seat at the table at.
Great, thank you so much. And I'm going to let Mr. Kim Minke piggyback off of that. How does these emerging sectors or current ones really impact your work? And the other piece is, what does this really mean when we talk about the top 5 high demand sectors? What does this mean through your lens as an employer and what you want people to know?
All right. And thanks for the opportunity to be part of it.
Thank you.
Really good work. And I applaud you for bringing together this broad group of folks to be able to help drive the ship. And that's what it's all about. So thank you for that. I think these 5 sectors are a good representation of what we really need based on the data. And, Sam's going to talk about the data. And we spent a lot of time talking through this because one of the big challenges that we've always had is talking the same language. In business, we talk about things one way, and when we try and translate that to education, we need a key to be able to make the translation, and we're not talking the same language. And so that's always one of our big challenges. And that's one of the big hurdles. And that's what, SWAT's about. That's what a lot of these programs that we've done over the last 20 plus years is being able to truly get on the same page. And so I think, again, these 5 sectors really talk about what we need to try and align them with the pathways that already exist out there, and then what we need to do to modify those. The other thing, and I think it was touched on, Alishir touched on it as well, but the key behind this is just because we say it's a sector doesn't mean that all the jobs in that sector go to that sector. Just like in the school system, we all have we all have nurses in the schools, right? Well, in manufacturing, we have doctors and nurses in manufacturing as well to help take care of our team members and do wellness programs and those kinds of things. So all these things overlap, and these are intended to be entry-level positions to get into this pathway. So when I look at it from a business perspective, I'm trying to align a student's interest and passion with then the ultimate career sector that they want to get into. And that may change. They may really have a passion for healthcare, but they really don't want to be in a hospital setting. Or they have a particular focus, or you name the career pathway. So I think that's really important for us to keep in mind, that we have all these crossovers, and just like education, we have lots of trainers that we have. And so we need them just as much as the school system does in the foundational teaching. Now we need them to continue that ongoing lifelong learning that we project for all of our team members. So once you get into business, things change so fast that we need to make sure that we have the foundational skills and all those essential skills or foundational skills, in addition to basic foundational technical skills, to then grow and expand. So that's what's important for us. The other is truly just being able to come up with ways to market to, from a business perspective, market to students. These are the career opportunities that are out there. And so we haven't done a good job of that. Identifying, yeah, if you're an engineer, you can go into manufacturing, but what do you do with that? I'm an engineer, but I haven't done engineering for 25 years because of the pathways that are available to you once you get there. And so identifying not only the entry point, but then the ongoing lifelong learning opportunities you have for a career advancement throughout your career. And not that you have to be with the same company all the time, but you've set that expectation, and you've got that North Star that you're going after as an individual.
Yeah, thank you. Very true. I really appreciate the points that you made, you and John both. Karen, I'm going to turn to you. And how does this list of sectors align to what KCTCS already provides? And do you see opportunities for growth or expansion? Or is it the way we communicate and do outreaches, as Kim had talked about, or John, with the needs? What is your perspective on those things?
Thank you. And I want to focus on two things. And one is aligning education with industry demands. I think that is critical. And what that means is partnerships. Partnerships, partnerships, partnerships. I can't say that enough, because we can't do what we need to do as a community college without those partnerships. We rely so heavily on our business partners, industry partners, to let us know what our students need, aligning that curriculum. We are going through a curriculum realignment process where we're really looking at all of our course competencies to make sure that they align with what our students need when they graduate with business and industry. And as part of that, I want to talk about the Kentucky Graduate Profile. That is critical. It's our partnership with the Council on Post-Secondary Education, not only the 16 community colleges, but also the 8 public institutions, where we're looking at those 10, as Kim said, foundational skills. How do we embed those throughout the curriculum so that it is scaffolded through a student's educational experience? And when they graduate, they have those 10 essential skills embedded in what they do. So I think those are very important. And to give you a couple of examples to demonstrate the partnerships, at BCTC, a couple of years ago, our industry partners said there is a disconnect, and I'll talk about our engineers. They're coming to us and they have all the theory, but they do not have the hands-on experience. So we listened and we created. The University of Kentucky and Bluegrass Community and Technical College came together and said, how can we help our industry with this problem? That's what we do. We try to solve the problem. So we developed a true 2+2 agreement where students come to BCTC for the first 2 years to take either computer engineering technology or integrated engineering technology. They get that much needed hands-on experience. Then they can move on to a career at that point, or they can continue on at the University of Kentucky for the next 2 years to get their BS degree in a technical engineering degree. So I think that is a very vital partnership. We listened and responded. Another example, we were approached by a company, Kenny Orthopedics at the time, which is now Hanger Clinic, and they said, we need more workers in orthotics and prosthetics. So we created a workforce class, produced some people that could meet that immediate need. And based on that, we then saw a greater need. And now we have a 2-year program, and we are one of 4 programs in the United States that offer orthotics and prosthetics. So once again, listening to our industry partners, what are the needs? How can we help educate? And I'll give you one more example, additive engineering. We had an industry partner come to us and say, we need more people in this field. And we have created that 2-year curriculum. It is going through the approval process now. It will be going forward soon so that we can then meet that industry standard of additive engineering that is desperately needed in the field. So those are some examples. And once again, aligning our education with industry demands and our partnerships is the message that I hope we can discuss today.
That is fantastic and a great segue, actually. So I'm going to go to John Gregory, Dr. Gregory, and what momentum is already underway in these areas? And to Karen's point, how might these partnerships help engage more of Kentucky's adults in furthering their education to fill these emerging workforce needs?
Yes, ma'am. So certainly, so first of all, I would just like to make this qualifying statement. When we talk about adults, particularly as far as non-traditional students, so oftentimes we don't think about GED seekers. And I just want to just caveat that just very quickly from a profile standpoint. Many of these folks that we serve, they did not complete the traditional process because of things dealing with the classroom. Most of these are life types of situations. So these are people who are capable and they are practitioners, but they need that theory foundation. So you have a ready-made pool there already of folks that are ready and willing. So of the almost 15,000 persons that we serve each year, 50% of them already work and they are in pursuit of their GED. Now, when you speak in terms of a program, we are not a GED program. It is a workforce development program. So if you backwards plan and if you begin with the end in mind, then what are the things that are required to gain employment? And this is all about lifelong learning. So most of us learn in a structured environment. And in order to make some type of vertical advancement, it is necessary and I choose my words advisedly, necessary to transition into the post-secondary space. And that's where we are. Also, when we speak in terms of military, so sometimes there is a misnomer that all people that transition out of the military are the same. That is not the way to view this population. And you don't view them singularly, because when you speak in terms of folks that are separating and folks that are transitioning, you need to think of this in the family context. Let's take Fort Campbell. Fort Campbell is one of the largest bases in the country. There is approximately 400 soldiers that separate from Fort Campbell each month, not just the service member, but the families, the spouses. So that is an opportunity to add to this pool. I think we all know that from a labor force rate standpoint, Kentucky is in a three-way tie for 43. We're currently sitting at a rate of 58.4%, and the national, average is 62.5%. So there is an opportunity to grow, and I think this particular pool of Kentuckians can certainly serve to add to that process. And I'm going to say this one more time. Please, when we say, hey, adult learners, don't forget GED seekers. These are individuals that are highly capable, they work, they are practitioners, and we have a mandate to take them through the secondary process and in the transition to post-secondary education. And the so what to all of this, the purpose is to give them the knowledge and skills, here it comes, for employment and self-sufficiency. So this is a workforce development process that includes being educated.
Yeah, thank you so much. So, Jim, I'm going to turn to you. And you've heard from our workforce, you've heard from adult education and higher education. What does this mean for K-12 and things to consider? And Sherilyn's going to have an opportunity to piggyback off of this, even at the advising level. But just briefly give what kind of sticks out to you as far as what the challenges would be for K-12, different ways of thinking, partnerships that would be different or elevated. I'll let you share what your thoughts are.
Yeah, so as a superintendent hat, where you think about this issue from a lot of different lenses. First and foremost, we all know the education workforce has been kind of in crisis, and we've been working for some solutions and making some progress, and that's been exciting. But we all know that there's more progress that needs to be made to address our workforce challenges. And so, that lens, we're thinking about it through, a policy and practice, at the local level, but also at the state level. And how do we, partner with various folks to address that. But then the other thing this brings to mind is, opportunities for kids and in their career pathways, and do we have those kinds of career pathway opportunities that match these in-demand work sector and our local community contextual needs, and thinking about partnering with our students and their families, but also with employers and community folks, to make sure that what we're doing is aligned to what their needs are locally and what they care about the most. And Commissioner Fletcher mentioned the work going on to develop a new accountability framework and policy for consideration coming up in 2026 session, and we're really excited about that. He mentioned the rollout of 4.0, and so one of the exciting pieces of that is that local community-based component, that would then bridge that communication between and collaboration between the school system and the local community to make sure what they care about most is addressed. So, those two lenses are really what we're thinking about. Now, on a workforce, standpoint, there's a lot of promising practices going on, but how do we scale those? When we think about, developing a deep bench, if you will, to address our workforce needs, not just for the short term, but for the long term. This is, important on both sides. And, and particularly in the education space, we're thinking about those traditional students and thinking about from high school to college and how do we align those career pathways. And so President Thompson's questions that he asked earlier, those were all in my brain at the moment. And I've already talked to, Joe Carroll about some of the limitations there that we need to address. And so thank you, President Thompson, for bringing those up, because we got to think about how do we create, those opportunities, incentivize those opportunities, market those opportunities, and build the funding mechanism, mentoring, and maybe some other incentives that make education a really attractive option. But then those non-traditional students, and when I think about some promising practices, you can look at no further than like Nelson County or Hardin County. They have some amazing grow your own programs where they're addressing traditional students, from high school into college, but also those non-traditional mid-career, late career entrants using apprenticeship type programs so that they can work but also develop their skills to become teachers. And then we're trying to think about even cross-sector partnerships and hard to fill positions. Are there some industry professionals that might could come in and teach part-time in some of those areas? And then with the advent of AI and technology, how do we leverage those to help us in hard to fill areas and to supplement what we have in our workforces. So, and then finally, one of the things that I've been thinking about is how do we use data systems to track these needs, to track our recruitment efforts, retention efforts, and what gaps might exist, and even our professional development and credentialing for our education and even these other work sector needs. Because I could see there's some promising practices that some school districts have used, for example, with the implementation of leader tracking systems, thinking about how do we develop, principals and other administrators to work our schools, but we could expand that into other areas, including these work sectors, and make sure we're hitting these gaps more effectively. And so I see so much promise, and I'm so excited about this, but I'll close with this little tidbit to just build on what we've been saying. We have to make sure that these systems are aligned. I liked what Kim said about align the words we use and our vocabularies, that how we talk about this, so that when we're saying things, we're talking about the same things, and that we can close these gaps and build on the momentum that's already been provided by the legislature, by the administration, by some of these agencies that have come together and helped us make progress. We can continue making progress and really leverage this to take Kentucky to new and greater heights. So I'm really excited about it.
Great. Thank you, Jim, so much. So, Sherilyn, no pressure or anything, but we've heard from everybody at every level. But what we keep talking about is opportunities for students, and Karen really promoted, actually everybody did in their own way, partnership. So how do we get this message to students and parents? How do we start early? Not that we're boxing them in, but really showing them opportunities and affordable ways to pursue their career aspirations or what they may be interested in. Can you just briefly share really what adjustments advisors or schools would have to take, knowing this updated information and the importance of partnership?
Yeah. So I think one of the things is just making sure that, we know we now have these five, sectors, and then trying to bridge that with your community, getting those partners out there, really trying to make sure that we connect with them. And then I think one thing, with talking with, we just had a CCR meeting this morning with Greg's coaches. And so just talking about, when we're talking about healthcare, when we're talking about education, manufacturing, any of those, there are so many career pathways within each of them. And so just really making sure that we broaden that for our students, and so that they don't think manufacturing that only includes, assembly line workers, and that's where our parents sometimes, kind of go back into, or healthcare doesn't only mean nursing or doctors. Like, there's so many other careers out there. And so really kind of bridging that a little bit more, I think, is going to be so helpful. And I know Futurity has, and I love the site. I've promoted a lot with Greg's region, but just really making sure that we're really kind of talking about all of those different careers in there, and then connecting our partners, our community that has those, businesses, I think is huge. And then, connecting with that higher ed, whether it's community college, whether it's universities, I think that's going to be huge, to kind of see what that pathway looks like. What are some different avenues for them? And then, utilizing those career exploration tools that we have, whether it's Futurity, One Career Stop, all of those different options out there. Even as a middle school career tech teacher, I utilize those, because sometimes our students only know what their families are experiencing or are participating in. So really kind of expanding that knowledge for them, I think, is going to be really important for us.
Great. Thank you so much. And I think that segues beautifully into, and I really appreciate everybody's points about, we can't silo into a job that is a sector, right? And I think probably education, we do the worst, because we talk about just being a teacher or just being a principal, or just, and it's not a just, it's a this and, right? We're all in these different roles, and many of us started maybe in the classroom or in a completely different sector. So I really appreciate your comments about that. I'm going to go back to, we're getting close on time, so I don't want to miss out on the opportunity to talk a little more about partnerships, because nobody can do this alone. It's not possible. Clearly, the complexity of just what we've heard today alone is a little overwhelming. So, Kim, I'm actually going to start with you. And you've heard from all the folks. How are partnerships with K-12 and post-secondary educators helpful to you? What's the best way to really connect, and how can this group collectively, the Continuum, help promote or support those mutual beneficial business and education partnerships and promote that in Kentucky?
Thanks, Amanda. Partnerships is one of the things that I love to talk about, because I have spent my entire career connecting the dots of trying to make things better. And I've had that opportunity through Toyota for years and years and years, as we started the facility here in Kentucky, and with the mindset of how do we assure that we have the resources necessary for the future, because we knew that there was going to be lots of growth. And so that's one of the things that we invested resources in, to be able to look at from a 50,000 foot level, how do we need to connect all these various partners to be able to invoke change? At Toyota, everything is about continuous improvement. So looking at where are we falling down and how do we move it forward and be able to reach the next goal and the next step. So it's really critical that we have those opportunities, but you have to have willing partners, and everybody is at a different age and stage. And so you have to kind of work through those things. Are folks ready to consider change? And that is always the big deal. what we have is fine. Well, yes, it's fine now, but maybe not for the future. And so how do we continually to push those things forward? So, one of the things that I can go back and point to is there are four examples of things that I think that we've been able to do collectively with lots of great partnership that were really firsts here in Kentucky in being able to move the ball forward and to a higher level. One of the things that here in Scott County, we had all kinds of issues, growth issues and things like that. So, back in 2010, after a lot of preparation, we were actually able to get everybody to agree that the Elkhorn Crossing School was a concept that we really could push forward. And that dealt with a lot of needs, but it also helped move the ball forward in terms of looking at STEM careers, looking at pathways, and looking at these things that are not just technical skills, but the essential skills, and truly developing kids. And so that project-based learning activity was all the rage. There were other examples of it in the state, but we were able to get everybody to agree, and so we were able to do that. And the success has really paid off. Other people got involved, and that's a great thing. But you got to be able to duplicate it and get everybody else to see the benefits of that and then take action. The second one that I wanted to bring up was the AMT program, or Kentucky Fame. I think is another great example, and it goes back, to the partnership, Karen, with BCTC. The Governor Brashear Sr. at the time recognized the benefit of that and asked us to be able to take that statewide. And so that's a program where everybody was able to get on board. It wasn't just for Toyota, it was for any manufacturer, and we spread it with all the community colleges across the state, and that became a national model, and it's still going today in 14 states. And so, those are the kinds of things that partnerships are really important, but you got to bring them together to agree and invest the resources to continue to make them happen. And invite other folks in. The third one that I'll mention, and this is John's bailiwick, of the Kentucky Chamber Workforce Center. Again, we weren't able to bring everybody together in the normal way, and so we reached out to our collaborator with the state chamber, and they helped us bring all the partners together to implement that talent pipeline management system. And again, that's a first in the country, or a model in the country that is used today now. And so we have the partnership with the Labor Cabinet, and it's integrated into the system. So being able to leverage those and take them to the next level, and that was spread all across the state. So again, those are the kinds of things that we need to continue to move forward. The last example that I'll just throw out is we just recently were able, this last year at Toyota, we were able to bring in a program that we started in 2 other states 3 years ago, that was this learn and earn program, or a internship type program at the high school level. We were able to get everybody kind of lined up and crossed all the T's and dotted all the I's to be able to make it happen within the existing structure. But it took us several years to get there. But it's for juniors and seniors in high school. They're able to work in a simulated work environment at the school in their junior year and learn all these things with hands-on activities in advanced manufacturing. And then in their senior year, be able to actually go and work on the line with a mentor. And then at graduation, if successful graduation, they have a job on day one. So it's very similar to the program the governor has set up of jobs on day one, but it linked all the parties together to be able to make that happen. And that can be expanded to anybody and everybody. In our other states, we've got it in multiple counties with multiple industries, and it's just a matter of duplicating it and getting everybody on board to partner. So, the bottom line is those are the kinds of things that we need to be able to do. When folks see good results, then they're willing to commit their time and resources as business to be able to participate. Time is the most critical factor for any business. There's not enough of it, and when they give it, they need something in return. They want that return on investment. And when they see something positive, they will pour their soul into it because everybody benefits. And so we've got to be able to demonstrate those things. That's what partnerships really mean from a business perspective.
Amanda, if
Yep.
I can jump in here, I saw a comment in the chat, and I kind of want to piggyback off what Kim just mentioned about our workforce center at the chamber. We have a foundation that gets to do a whole lot of the workforce programmatic work here that has a fantastic team. So they would kick me if I didn't mention some of those programs. But looking at the chat, I see some folks mentioning some getting involved at the elementary level. We actually have a bus to business program that we run through that, where we take kids at the elementary, middle school age group and kind of go take them to a business in the community up the road to show them that there's jobs in their community. We would love to partner with anybody on the call that would like to expand this. I think we really need to look at it at a regional approach nowadays. If you look at any economic development, Scott County was in the news a couple weeks ago with Madison and Berea and others. Everyone is taking a regional approach to these issues at a higher level. We should probably do that, getting our students involved on the jobs that are out there within a couple county radius. Couple of those programs that I have to mention is the Military Hiring Academy. So to Mr. Gregory's point earlier, we have got to figure out a way to keep these folks here. They're here for so long and short term, and oftentimes they go to other states. And we've launched a military hiring academy where we've trained 60 employers. We've increased military recruitment rather by 20%. Another one is the KHA collaboration that we have here. So working with regional healthcare providers to really recruit and retain talent in a sector that keeps coming and going in workforce participation. And then one that we've not really talked about on this call, but that has been very successful here is our Fair Chance Academy. They've trained employers on hiring individuals with a history of incarceration and substance use, and this has resulted in 550 job placements since 2022. So would love to share more about those, but I'd be remiss if I did not mention, to Kim's point, our workforce center and the good work that they do.
Thank you. And y'all know I have more questions, but we are close on time. So first of all, let's thank our panel. And I hope they don't leave yet, especially those who are not typically here. This has just opened the door for me, and I hope it has for you all. There's been several comments in the chat about early and often career exploration as low as elementary, really the resources that are already available in Futurity that we have aligned to the top 5. But I want some feedback from you all. So Robin's going to hand you. She's not going to hand you anything. She's going to post the PowerPoint just with a couple of questions on it. And I'd love for you to unmute, or you can put it in the chat, whatever you would prefer. And John, if you can, before we get to those, Jenny had asked, repeat the name of the fairness group again, or you can, if you'll put it in the chat so we can all get those, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely.
But just what are some of your initial thoughts and or questions you have about the conversation today? What stood out to you, or questions you may have for the panelists that maybe you haven't thought about before?
Amanda, I wanted to jump in,
Please.
hopefully to talk a little bit since everybody got to brag on some of the programs they're doing with that. Just a couple of points to make from a CPE higher ed viewpoint. As you all know, we've got those 10 essential skills that were designed by employers. Kim, you were a part of it, that you recommended, and civic engagement is included in that. We're now putting it in all of our institutions, as Karen has said, but we're going to start big time. We've got it in programs now with general education. So every student coming through post-secondary will have those integrated into the threads. We also did a couple of other great things. I mean, with Heroes to Healers, taking those medics coming out of the military, getting them in a LPN and moving them through that degree program. Workforce Collaborative, where we got 10 million from the state and got 47 workforce partners to give us $50 million to start building the pipeline to healthcare. And you've seen the numbers. It's amazing just how fast we've been able to do that with an employer and higher education folks coming to the table. We're moving to have advisory groups from employers at every one of our majors, whether it's a sociology major or a business major, because we know that they all lead to a good job. We're identifying each and every job opening that are available, futurity, with each of our majors and some of our things. So I just want to throw that in there. In the past, higher ed has been considered to be the one sitting on the side. And when I came into this role, I redesigned CPE as a whole to build that workforce collaborative and business partnerships unit, as well as this P20 unit that we're doing. So what I'm hearing in collaboration, in partnerships, we all are coming to the table now with the attitude that needs to be there to make that happen. And so this is how we capitalize. I agree with you, Ken. I mean, it's not about competition anymore. It's not about pointing fingers. It's about how we are coming together to serve the needs of Kentucky. And one of our biggest partnerships, I would be remiss, Representative Tipton, if I didn't say this, we got the legislature to buy in some of this really well, and there's been some laws passed. So much so that there are people in D.C. and Washington, D.C. trying to replicate some of what we were doing in Kentucky. So I'm very proud of the partnerships we have, even though we need to double down on it. Amanda, not necessarily the questions, but I hope it hit on some of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I also wanted to bring up another comment that was made. This one was by Penny about the importance of parents and families need to know early. It's crucial that schools receive, and I think the early message even has to go along with this cross-sector thought, right? We talk about that IT are in hospitals and nurses are in schools or in manufacturing. And I think we have to get out of the silo thinking, the box, and really think broadly. And that's going to take all of us because we don't know all the things. And then Kim also put in the chat, definitely read it, to consider partnerships to explore more externships for teachers to grasp high demand career opportunities available in Kentucky. Absolutely, all day. We, as educators, are asked to know all the things, and we don't know all the things. And so I think any opportunity to learn what's out there and who the experts are, I think only benefits our students and really our own understanding of our approach. So please blow the chat up. I need you all to lean in on how we can be a part of this with the CEC, how we communicate this. What more do you want to know? Where do you feel like you've just scratched the surface? Do you want John to bring back the different groups that have been training the employers for our different populations that tend to get left out or assume that they can't work? Or Dr. Gregory talking about adults getting their GED and assuming that they don't go to post-secondary. They absolutely can. They're absolutely our employers. And so where do you really see the push in? The other last thing I'll say before Sam, I am going to give you time to talk, I promise. We're a chatty group. I'm very passionate about this. But the other thing that stuck out to me too is, Dr. Fletcher had put in there about the vibrant learning piece, and Jim had mentioned it as well. They have their essential skills, and part of the work that we've already been doing, and it's on the CPE website, is the crosswalk between KDE and CPE's essential skills to kind of how those link together with higher ed. And what was already put into law, the crosswalk around that was driven a lot by the chamber about the importance of having those essential skills. You know, it's always been in this this circle, and I feel like it's finally coming together. And then Dr. Hargis also put in there that we are also going to be partners in middle school career exploration, because it's so important, and we very rarely talk about those years. And so there's so many cross-pollinated areas that partnerships are what we do, but perhaps it's a more strategic approach and regional approach. I know that folks have brought up. And so, Sam, I'm going to turn it to you, and people keep blowing up the chat to be able to give your data. I think this will add the information that may be rolling around your mind that Alisher had shared on the methodology of how it's done and where you live in the state or the folks that you serve, what that looks like with the sectors. So then we are a little more equipped with what that looks like. And then we'll have to round out today with a question, but this is just the beginning of the next 2 years. This is not a quick thing, but really, where do we want to go from here, and how do we tie this partnership better and stronger and move this forward? So, Sam, we're going to share the screen and let you share a little more information as we digest new learning again.
Sure. Thank you for that segue. I appreciate being here with you guys today. In my day job, I'm a stuffy lab coat. So I love being a fly on the wall, listening to the professionals that make the magic happen with education and workforce development. Let's go on to the first slide. I'm just going to do sort of a quick and dirty key sectors. What are they? What is their sort of place in this larger, mosaic of the economy? We went through sort of their names earlier. I did want to touch on really quick. Alisher alluded to NAICS codes. You don't have to know what those are. They are industry classification codes. Under the hood, our key sectors sort of align to these codes that we can use to sort of pull data back out and get feedback about what these industries are doing. Vast majority of the key sectors here are straightforward, right? I say construction, you folks know exactly what that means. The only two possible exceptions to that, manufacturing and logistics under the hood includes manufacturing and transportation and warehousing. And then arguably the sort of most esoteric of these is professional, scientific, and technical services. What on earth is that? If you don't mind to go on to the next slide. Here are examples of what is included in that umbrella. We've got everything from legal services to computer systems design to scientific research. This is where a lot of what you imagine falling under the STEM umbrella. This is, where a lot of folks that earn those credentials wind up employed. So professional, scientific, and technical services, it's a mouthful, but it's tech. It's tech jobs. It's knowledge jobs. Next slide. So this graph is just showing you volume of employment accounted for by each of our key sectors over time. You can see that manufacturing and logistics is kind of the heaviest hitter here, right? Accounting for almost 400,000 jobs as of 2023 in Kentucky, followed by healthcare, 300,000, et cetera, and so on. The gray portions of this graph represent sort of approximate periods of economic recession. So you can kind of suss out here that manufacturing and construction seem to be largely our most reactive industries in terms of when we are in a recessional environment. Those are industries that we see a little bit of job loss in. Let's go to the next slide. This is just sort of a different take on the same sort of data. So this is a chart showing the percentage of Kentucky's overall employment accounted for by each sector over time. You can kind of think of it as like a pie graph, split apart and then taken over time. The sort of multicolored sections there below, they sort of represent the collective, percentage of employment accounted for by our key sectors. You can see that's hovered around 50% for a very long time, at least 20 years. Very rarely do you see large swings in sort of, what percent of our economy is accounted for by these industries. Manufacturing and logistics, that accounted for about 23% of our labor market in 2000. That receded a little bit as you approach 2010. It has slowly gained some ground back. And then healthcare and social assistance has sort of also picked up a little bit of its share of our total employment in Kentucky. Let's go to the next slide. Average annual wages. This one hopefully is pretty straightforward. When you're thinking about, these key sectors as targets, destinations for our education and workforce systems, it's certainly worth asking, well, what sort of, what financially, what are the outcomes for individuals that work in these industries? In 2023, professional and scientific and technical services, average salary in that industry was, it crested above $80,000, right? Construction and manufacturing and logistics, they both hovered just shy of $70,000 per year in 2023. Healthcare, 62,000, education, 51,000, and then sort of that other sort of catch-all category of all industry that isn't in these key sectors, about 50,000 even. Next slide, please. So this is a really busy slide. I'm totally aware that it's probably a lot to digest. But what this is showing is location quotients. So a location quotient is a measure of concentration. It's basically the ratio of, what percent of our job market is accounted for by an industry compared to what percent of the national job market is accounted for by an industry. A location quotient above 1 means we have a greater share of it here than the nation at large. Lower than 1, we have a lower concentration of it than the nation at large. You can sort of think of it as if you have a really high location quotient for a given industry, that's almost like your specialty. That's like saying we have more of this. It is comparatively a bigger chunk of our job market than elsewhere. You can see in Kentucky, transportation, warehousing, and manufacturing, those we exhibit really high location quotients for both of those. We're the highest in the country when it comes to transportation and warehousing, which again fits back into that key sector of manufacturing and logistics. We just had to break it out because of how the data is organized on this slide. Similar concentration for educational services. You'll notice that educational services here is only local government owned educational services. So that's mostly our K-12 boards of education. I could have done all different ownerships here on this slide, but I didn't think you guys wanted 30 bar graphs, so I spared you that. Healthcare, private owned healthcare and social assistance, we have almost an identical location quotient, or we have a location quotient that implies, we have an almost identical share of our job market accounted for by healthcare as the country at large. And then we have lower location quotients for construction and professional, scientific, and technical services. So comparatively, our job market, those two industries comprise a slightly smaller portion of it than the nation at large. Next slide, please. So I have some slides here prepared, one for each key sector. I thought we would take a sort of regional look at these industries. And so we're going to go through just the portion of each workforce area's overall employment accounted for by these key sectors. So construction, what we're seeing here is construction is just kind of a meat and potato staple. Everywhere it accounts for, between 3 and 5% of our local economies. Next slide, please. Professional, scientific, and technical services, largely the same story with the added caveat that, our urban areas, Northern Kentucky, Kentuckiana Works, Bluegrass, Lexington, Louisville, Cincinnati, those areas have, their job markets exhibit a higher concentration of professional, scientific, and technical services. Next slide, please. Education services. Here we kind of start to see a little bit more regional variation. You can you notice that Eastern Kentucky, particularly Southeastern Kentucky, exhibits a much higher reliance isn't the right word, but larger portion of their job markets are held in educational services than elsewhere. Next slide, please. Similar story, just even more extreme. Eastern Kentucky, you can kind of see is, largely a healthcare economy. A quarter of all employment in EKSEP, for example, is comprised of healthcare employment. And then I think we have one more. Yeah, manufacturing and logistics, almost the exact opposite phenomenon, right? It comprises a relatively small portion of our labor markets in Eastern Kentucky, substantially higher portion of our labor markets elsewhere, reaching as high as a quarter in some of these other areas. Next slide. So I really would have loved to have a presentation here that dives into all sorts of stuff about, these really rich, interesting relationships between occupations and credentials and industries. But if I had given that to you, this presentation would probably be about an hour and a half long. Why? Because in data world, this sort of like alignment, it's a very complicated phenomenon in data world. You're kind of thinking about three major touchstones, right? Credentials, what credentials are folks earning? Occupations, what occupations are they performing? And then sector or industry, what industry are they performing those occupations in? I always, my lovely wife has been kind enough to let me commandeer her office for the day. She is a civil engineer. When our education and workforce systems produced her as a credentialed person, what industry were they supporting in doing so? You might think construction. You might think I'm in, a construction company's office building right now. No, I'm on UK's campus. She works for the Kentucky Transportation Center. So you might think intuitively, well, civil engineers, we're pushing those folks into construction. Not necessarily. There is a relationship there between civil engineers and educational services. Similarly, sometimes there's some gray area in between just credential and occupation. I was a sociology major here at UK. What occupation was I a part of the supply for? Could have been a great number of them, right? I could have, entered the role that I did, research analyst at KY Stats. I could have just as easily done market research for the cupcake company that I worked for in college. Shout out to Gigi's Cupcakes. So if you like this sort of 101, presentation of the key sectors, but you think, well, gosh, I want to dive deeper and I know there's a lot of nuance here, please reach out. I'd be happy to give you the 201 version of this presentation, and we can have a much longer conversation if anybody's interested in that. So the simplest way to present this is for all the occupations that touch our key sectors, which ones are going to have the highest demand? Demand here means job openings from economic growth or individuals leaving the labor force. When you sort of slice it up that way, registered nurses certainly claim the gold medal here. We're going to have in the 10-year period between 2022 and 2032, we're going to have almost 20,000 job openings for nurses. We follow that up with truck drivers, bookkeeping and accounting clerks, general and operations managers, and the list goes on. Alice here alluded earlier to the idea that, these occupation industry relationships are sometimes really strong and straightforward. So a registered nurse, yeah, they could maybe go work in a school. They could maybe do lots of other things, but they're probably going to wind up in healthcare. But look at number 15, human resource specialist. What industry do we is sort of the target for a human resource specialist? Hard to say, right? When our education workforce systems produce a human resource specialist, arguably they're supporting all of our key sectors and all of our non-key sectors. So this is just a quick and dirty look at some demand data for occupations. This is the relationship between credentials, occupations, industries is quite complicated. It's very rare that you'll catch me shining a spotlight on the limitations of data. But I think that is important for a group like this, because the truth of the matter is sometimes you're running up against the limitations of what the data can tell you. And that's where sort of the math stops and the magic of your folks' work begins, right? Advising, program implementation, partnerships. That's kind of where the magic starts. So with that, hopefully that was a pretty useful quick and dirty view of the key sectors.
Thank you, Sam, so much. And that all made sense, actually, because all your data just sometimes is so much. It's so good. And I think you just did a fabulous job putting a bow on the beginning of this conversation. We've had a lot today, and I've had lots of questions posed in the chat about, well, first of all, some promising practices and initiatives that are taking place, which is amazing. Keep rolling those in, because one of the things, and John even asked about this too, John Hughes, how do we make sure we're not duplicating efforts when it comes to the various workforce programs mentioned? And I think that's a great question. And do we even have a analysis or running out of words today, an asset map? There we go. Asset map to really show our efforts at different levels or even within different regions, because we talk about the power of not being a statewide thing, but the power of our regions and our communities, because then it hits on what it is that community, that region may need. And so I think those are really good questions. And what I will do is collect those definitely to make sure you have your eyes on those. And I want you to keep thinking about what sticks out to you. But what I need you to transition to before I stop tapping into your brain for today, I really wanted to bring this to light. And I really need your help, because you all know this is not a rubber stamp group for my type A person to have a very clear plan for the next 2 years. But I really feel like we have made so much progress as a collective, collaborative group, that we, and just the power of the outcomes already, just with Futurity, which is one piece of what we've done together, one piece. And there's so much amazing work that people have shared. Is where do we go from here? Where do you really see the CEC leaning into? Because when you all led us before, that's where we've seen some real change with collaboration and dual credit in our efforts and how we're sharing and talking. We didn't take over anybody's work, but we started connecting dots. And Kim, I feel like maybe that's where you and I are very kindred spirits, because I call myself the official dot connector, hence this group, because nobody knows all the work, right? And every time we think we know the work, we don't know the work. And so I really want you to think about it. And Robin's going to put on the screen a Mentimeter. And if you just absolutely cannot handle a Mentimeter, put it in the chat. But I really do want to collect it on here. And you can see that, just as a reminder, the vision that we want, that you all wrote, we did not write this, we collectively pulled this together, is that the CEC champions an agile education system that serves Kentuckians from cradle to career. We talked a ton about career today, and preparedness and essential skills and partnerships of how we have to do this together. And then we aspire to be the most seamless education system in the nation, where Kentuckians have access and opportunity to earn quality degrees and credentials that lead to prosperous careers and fulfilling lives. We exist to remove barriers throughout the system to ensure students can access a seamless P20 journey. And we want to support actions that lead Kentuckians to earning necessary degrees and credentials to succeed in the workforce, elevate our communities, and increase economic opportunity. We don't do those things in particular, but we convene cross-sector partners, we monitor and report progress, we identify and advocate for policy solutions, and my most favorite action I think that we do is accelerate action. And so by thinking about what our role is, I would like for you to get on menti.com, even if you're a guest with us. Love your input. If you do menti.com on your computer or on your phone, and then the code is up here, and we'll leave this up. And then what ideas discussed today are most aligned with our mission and vision and most actionable for 2025, and I would say even into 26. And even if that means I would be interested in knowing more about, I think the CEC could have impact on. Macy, from a student's perspective, what stood out to you today, and what was like, I don't know what y'all are talking about, but what really felt like, okay, we can do this, or I think we can connect these dots. Please take a minute, think about that. You can either put it in the Mentimeter or drop it in the chat. Either one is totally fine, but we need your feedback. This is super important.
Amanda, where is the code?
Oh, it's at the very top, Penny, right here. At the very top where it says join. Oh, I'm using my pointer like you can see my pointer. Top of the middle of the screen. It says join at menti.com and then it says use code and there's an 8-digit code.
Yeah, it's blocked from.
Oh, I'm gonna put it in the chat. Where are you able to see the chat?
Yeah.
Awesome. I'm putting it in there right now. Thank you for letting me know. 8698.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for letting me know. Fascinating. So the things that are sticking out already are futurity is something people still want to dig into. Partnerships, lots of partnership, collaboration, alignment, resource collaboration, early career, lots of early career exploration, creative connections, education, stronger partnerships, communication. Thank you, Kim, so much for being a part and joining us today. I really appreciate it. Thanks for the comment. And then Diane had even said the opportunity for all students to enter into the workforce ready, willing, and able to perform at high levels in career of their choice. Local partner engagement, accountability framework, region focused. I think this cradle to career, streamlining. I think this has given us some really strong direction of where you'd like to go, and where I think we need to continue to connect dots and elevate the work that's going on. And I think part of that, and we will share all this with you as a follow-up. You know, I do. I bum up your email account just so you have all the stuff. But really, I appreciate you leaning into that. What Robin and I can do is kind of put this together, kind of look back at the chat and the video recording of the things that you all have shared as events and activities already going on, and what is overlapping, and maybe where are some holes. And so we can reach out with some opportunities to be a part of and digging into some asset mapping and where we go from here. We'll get back together, not until August, but that doesn't mean that we will do nothing. This gives us time to work with individuals, to learn about your work. If there are things you would like to share. So I know there was a lot of interest today in John Hughes' work at the Chamber and the Foundation around the employer training. And so if there are things you would like to know more about, please do not hesitate to drop that in the chat, or you can email us, and we would be happy to reach out and get that information. And so anybody can share those things. So many ideas were shared in the chat, and we will take a note of all of those to be able to share with you what's going on in this state. because there's a lot of movement. There's a lot of effort. Nobody is sitting idle hoping that we get employees. I can tell you that. I do think the importance of communication, alignment, and streamlining is something that we can lean into. Penny, you have a question. I'm sorry. I just saw your hand raised.
That's okay. It just went up.
Oh, okay, good. I thought I'd missed it.
No, you're fine. So listening to all of this, if I had to ask for some data, and if I could get it, I would ask for a breakdown of who is in these programs, right? Because if we go back 15, 20 years, when we talk about CTE and pathways, it used to be, vocational education, VOTEC, and it was for the kids who they're not going to go to college. You're not going to make it in college, right? So now we've had this complete flip. We've done a 180. And now we provide these opportunities to the kids we know who are our outliers, right? Our shining stars. Either way, what you have is a lack of access and opportunity for some group. So I'm going to use the word, and I'm going to say it's still an equity issue, right? Because depending on what county you're in, who determines that these kids have access to these programs? I firmly believe, and the way the law is written, it's supposed to be that the child chooses the pathway. But we know we have schools that choose and stick kids in the pathway, whether or not it's what they want, right? So I would like to see who's in the programs. And I would like to see the breakdown and how are we changing and making sure that we're making these opportunities accessible to every kid.
Yes, I'm just making note so I don't forget. Yeah, we can definitely pull data and be able to share what's available, and I'll have to lean in on my colleagues here online, but definitely happy to dig into that, Penny. And I think the other thing too is I know that we have talked a lot about the IOP, and if you talk to students about that, many of them will roll their eyes, right? And they're like, but really the whole purpose of that was not a thing, but it was the process, to your point, Penny, of saying, well, what are you interested in? And how can we get you in, how can we get you some experience to see if that's something you want to run to or run away from? And so part of that is actually Michelle Searcy at KDE has invited a group of people to really reevaluate that, because we've aligned so much of futurity to job opportunities and access. And so we're really partnering closely with K-12 to make sure that those pieces are aligned per the counselors in the state that are saying, help us help the students. When we talked to the Family Scholar House for adults who are in need, they said, help us help these adult students who are also looking for homes for their children and for jobs, and so it's really super interesting. We've talked to the Department of Juvenile Justice. We have talked to Addiction Recovery. And it has been a learning experience. We talked to virtual schools yesterday, persistence to graduation yesterday. We've done adult education. And every group we've talked to has all pretty much said the same thing. Thank you for putting all this together. We didn't know Kentucky offered all these things. And how can we get this in the hands of more people? Which is why we're also working with Beth on all the way down to middle school. And what does that really look like? And even in elementary, it's not all the same 4 or 5 jobs, but how do you even pursue that? And what happens when that looks different than mom and dad? And we talked about that yesterday with counselors who were in the persistence to graduation advisory group. They are in different schools, alternative schools and your non-traditional schools, or in schools with students who are at risk of dropping out. And most of the time, not most of the time, many times when the parents don't understand the opportunities, they'll say, number one, we can't afford it. Or number two, I never did that, so he or she's not doing that. And so it's a scary thing, right? And whether that's entering the workforce directly or going into a training or any type of post-secondary education, it's a scary place. And so that's where we're learning a lot. And we're learning a lot from our military families of what they experience when they come into the state and they're brand new and they're looking for jobs and schools for their families. So we've had some really great, humbling conversations about how to make things more accessible. So I appreciate your question, because we're digging into how do we get that information out, because it's not an opportunity if it's not known. and it's not really accessible. So that's absolutely, I appreciate your question and us digging into what is it we have and who's taking advantage of it, which we have started to do with dual credit. We have a significantly low percentage of students with disabilities, but only about 3% that have cognitive disabilities. So it's a huge population that's missing out on advanced coursework that are highly capable of advanced coursework. And so that's just one of many examples. So I appreciate your question. And I think those are the things we have to dig into. And really, that's where we have to work together. I don't know what Sherilyn thinks on this, but I know when we've talked to advisors or counselors or people who are working with students, they say, if I don't really understand it, I don't talk about it a whole lot because I don't want to mislead people. And there's a lot to know. So I think the externships, I think Kim had suggested, or someone else, it's essential because we're having impact on families and young people, or not, right? So I think this group is absolutely key in helping challenge how we communicate, what we're communicating, and how we're working together to get the word out for everybody. And so because we need everybody. So yes, so lots of comments. I will gladly share these with you. Robin, if you will go to that last slide, we have about 5 minutes, and I think we have exceeded everybody's chunks of brain and ideas and thoughts for the day. And I don't want to tap you guys out. You're my favorite people to meet with. Couple things that will be, or a few things that will be in the follow-up email. That's going to be a little heavy, and I apologize. Sorry, not sorry, because I want you to have access to it. So if we would have had a face-to-face 4-hour meeting today, we would have gone through all the legislative updates. As Aaron had mentioned earlier, it was a short session, but a very busy one. Our legislators were very busy. And so we have, KDE had given an update to their board. And so I actually have that link to their presentation. And we have one also for CPE. And so we will attach that for the education legislation that passed from this last session. We also have scripts and a recording of this meeting. Many a time some of you will miss or you have to log off. I get it. And so would love for you to ponder if there's something else that pops up. Please push in and share. Summarize priorities and topics that you're talking about. And these things are in the chat. Robert and I will work together on that and really get a summary, make sure we're capturing your thoughts and you're representing you well. And we're also finalizing the annual report for the CEC. But what we've done is actually put together a report over the past 4 years. And then what we will start to do is produce a report every other year, because sometimes it takes a little while to get a lot of people moving. And so we want to be able to show progress and be able to give you something that is meaningful. Outside of that, our next CEC meeting is August 27th, which feels like a long way away, but there's a lot of work to be done between now and then. And so we'll be reaching out for opportunities for you to participate if you are interested. But like I said, we are very much happy to connect you with anybody on this call and with resources they have. And the last thing I want to do is, David Young, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but David is another new member for us that represents one of our cooperatives, our Central Kentucky Education Cooperative, and has agreed to serve in this role. Our co-ops for K-12 are vital for professional learning, networking. Greg is represented too with Sherilyn. And we just really value the partnership. Obviously, these folks are educators and have lots of connections to higher ed and to K-12, as well as the local business industry in the ways that they engage and train and provide support for. So where we've had some organizations not able to participate, we wanted to still have that representation. So David, thank you for serving. I didn't mean to put you on the spot. And we look forward to working with you. Other than that, and Diana did ask a question. Diane, will there be conversations with groups in the community, YMCA, grandparents support? Absolutely. If you have connections to these groups and you have points of contact that you know we can get in touch with and set up meetings, please share them with us. So Diane, if you have connections directly, we're happy to look it up, but we will gladly meet with anybody. And we have a full calendar that we are adding to constantly to be able to reach out to folks and talk to and get feedback. Other than that, I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Thompson and Dr. Fletcher. If you all have any final words you would like to share in our final minute.
Fletcher, I'll let you go first. How about that?
I'm sorry, Dr. Thompson, could you repeat? I didn't hear what you had to say.
So I'll let you go first.
As we went through, I really love the activity at the end, alignment, partnerships, collaboration, looking at accountability, looking at how we can work together. I think that was a great activity to see how we're, and again, loaded with information again today. And there's so many things that we're very proud of as part of the CEC, and Futurity is just one of those. I think that the input that we received from many different groups, including the Commissioner Student Advisory Council group, which was probably they are very analytical, if you will. But
Yes.
again, seeing that the collaboration, the partnerships, the alignment, and the focus of this group, I'm really looking forward to as we move forward and add on to the work that we've already accomplished.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And Susan, you posted there before I finish out, you posted, would it be a good idea to get in front of churches and organizations like that? Absolutely. CB Akins, as you all know, Bracktown, retired minister, heavily engaged still in the religious community. He is all about this. He's arguing the same point that the way we reach people to still is through churches and other religious organizations that bring people together. And it's so absolutely good idea. I want to finish out with something very similar the commissioner said and Amanda said, so I won't take up a lot of time with it, other than saying we are doing a lot. And the CEC is a place we can bring a lot together, right, to know what we're doing. That collaboration and partnerships can be expanded even greater because sometimes we do these things in our silos and it's good work, but it doesn't reach the critical mass that we need to or that we could if we were doing it in partnership and in collaboration. The richness of this is clearly what we've been able to see just today. You know, the last thing I'll say, and people have heard me say this over and over again, if you're going to do it, right? If you're going to do it right. If you're going to do it, be number one in the great things to do. And that may sound a little arrogant or a little competitive, but I don't care. That's what I think about Kentucky. If we're going to do this for our students in Kentucky, for our citizens in Kentucky, let's do it and do it right. And I appreciate that we are doing exactly that. So thank you all. Have a great, until I see you again as a group or as an individual. And thank you, Amanda, Robin, your team for the work you're doing.
Absolutely. And thanks to our panelists. We so appreciate your input and time. You guys have a great afternoon and we will be in touch. Thank you. Okay.